Hello, we're here at Itron Utility Week, as you may have guessed, because there's probably loads of banners in the back shot. But one of the things we're trying to do here is not just have in-depth interviews, but also to talk about some of talk to some of Itron's partners. And we're here at Capgemini, and Peter, just wanted to talk to you a little bit about digitization, right? It's the word of the moment, it's du jour, digitizing the energy network and so on. But can you give us a very brief overview of what that actually means? You know, you guys are incredibly at the coalface, you consult, but you also operate, you know, some of the AMI networks out there. You're really part of that digitization piece. What are you seeing?
Well, first off, as we move towards the digitization, and utilities are forced to move towards digitization now as their consumer base is getting more active and more involved. Prosumers is the term we're using quite often. So digitization is not something that's a choice, and it's coming quite rapidly. You know, again, a lot of times we think about these things as a long timeline, a long horizon. It is coming very rapidly. And as we start to enable the smart grid through smart meters or smart devices, smart homes, smart cities, it comes at even a faster pace. So the key thing for the utility is the means and the mechanisms to which to keep up with that and to still service their customers. And again, the theme this week's Itron Utility Week around resourcefulness is how does all that play into conserving the natural resources of our planet.
And so there are two things there. That resourcefulness, I'll come on to that a little bit as well, but one of the other key things that I'm finding is that, you know, the utilities need to be in with the conversation. You know, we did a webinar with you guys where we had Ron Deasy from Mars talk a little bit about an example where there was a development in Toronto, I believe it was, but it was in Canada anyway, where literally the developer wasn't talking to the utility. They were going to make it a completely self-sufficient, own generation, outside of the utility spectrum. The utility literally had to come knocking on the door and say, hey, we want to play here, because we're an integrator. And that to me spoke volumes about how there is now a potential for people with the right DNA to kind of do their own thing, you know? And isn't that a bit scary?
It is very scary, and you know, at Capgemini, our tagline is the collaborative business experience, and there are many stakeholders, many parties involved, from the utilities, from ratepayers, I shouldn't call them ratepayers, customers, regulators. So there's a lot of different players, and everybody, you know, that has to get on a common page, on the same page, in order to make this successful. So, you know, in the example that you mentioned about trying to put fences up, trying to put walls up, about people trying to do their own things, that's, in my opinion, a recipe for disaster. It has to be broad, it is disruptive, and it has to be encompassing.
So do you think then, actually, and it's a word that's coming out of this conference, this refocusing on resourcefulness. Actually, here's a resource, finite, intermittent, whatever it is, it's a resource, and we need to think about the resource first and the deployment of that resource rather than the other way around. Could you just talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, I think, again, resources are not infinite, right? They are finite, whether it's water, whether it's gas, whether it's electricity, whether that electricity is generated from fossil fuel or not. It's not infinite, it's finite. So we have to be resourceful. And all of what we're doing here, all of what Capgemini does with its AMI smart grid practice is put the means in place by which to manage those resources, or help utilities and customers manage those resources.
And that tees us up nicely, because you and I are doing a more in-depth interview, right, so we can talk a little bit more about that resourcefulness side of things. But thanks for taking the time, and I'd like to thank you as well a little bit for watching, because we're just trying to bring these little things, these little messages that have a big resonance, just bring them to life a little bit.
Okay, fantastic.
All right.